Udio. Oh my God. Has any website so betrayed its users as Udio did? It's unbelievable. I know I'm probably the last person who uses Udio on YouTube to get on and complain about it, but I want to put in my 2 cents. This is unbelievable. For those who are, don't know what Udio is, I don't know why you're watching this video, but Udio is an artificial intelligence music generating site. I started using it about a year and a half ago, and I absolutely love it. I've been a songwriter since about 1982, and I've been in bands. I play instruments. In fact, my acoustic guitar. You can see a lot of videos of me playing my own songs on my YouTube channel. You can also see Udio versions of the same songs, and I loved using Udio. And I started using Udio after seeing music channels that I really like on YouTube, the people talking about it. A lot of the music sites I followed, they were horrified by Udio and Suno, because of the quality of the music they were putting out. So I had to try it, and I went with Udio rather than Suno because at the time I liked the contract. They gave you commercial rights if you were a subscriber, and I went to the pro level. You didn't even have to acknowledge that Udio created the songs, but unlike a lot of people who are creating artificial intelligence songs, on my videos on YouTube, you'll see that I always say music by Udio, or more likely, what I've been saying more lately is music by the Udio All-Star Band. My little joke there. But, also I just want to say when it comes to artificial intelligence music, my music is only partially artificial intelligence. I have the lyrics. I have melodies for my songs too, but, Udio would create its own melodies. Sometimes I like my melodies better, sometimes Udio, but just looking at the analytics of the songs I was putting up, when I recorded my own songs, I'd be lucky to get 150 views, and the people who were watching it were tended to be practically all male, practically all over 65. But when I put Udio versions up of the same exact songs, the analytics changed dramatically. The age of my average viewer went down. I'm talking about the videos I would make, went down to about 28, and it broke about 50-50 male-female. And some of the songs before, it seems like there's been a algorithm change in YouTube. That's another story. But some of the songs would get thousands of views. So I was really happy with Udio. So I was shocked when I found out about, this is another thing that really makes me angry. I found out about these changes at Udio through YouTube videos. Now, I'm not on Udio every day. If I'm working on a project, I'll be on every day. But I had been off for a couple days, and suddenly I hear that Udio settled in the lawsuit, and a little backstory on that. The music people, the music publishing and music labels have really consolidated. There's just a couple really big ones. And one of them's Universal Music Group, and them and Sony, and they were all suing Udio and Suno. And personally, I think Udio and Suno would eventually win if they fought. Udio made what's causing the problem is Udio made a deal with Universal. I'll get into that in a second, but I'm going to do a video later about, the ethical issues involving training on other people's work. And I'm someone, who can look at it from both sides, because not only am I a small-time digital creator on like YouTube and all, I was also, a traditional creator as well. You can see the poster behind me for my book, Chapel Street. I am a traditionally published author. I'm a screenwriter. I've written 14 produced motion pictures. I've written a number of true crime short films for the FBI that won Emmys when they played on the Pentagon Channel. And I've worked on literally hundreds of hours of reality television for Warner Brother Discovery and National Geographic, So in the the old school world of traditionally creating, I've succeeded in that. So, I understand both parts of the dilemma. But here's the crux of the deal that Udio made to get out of this lawsuit, which only really affects them and Universal. What they're essentially going to do is they've made a deal with Universal where they will be able to, Universal is going to let them have rights to train on Universal artists who opt in. So, Universal owns the Beatles now. So I would be able to, go and if the Beatles opt in, I can make new Beatles songs. It will be the Beatles, trained, through AI. And, Universal will make some money and the Beatles will make some money. It seems like a win-win situation. Except the problem is now you won't own your product. You can't even display it. It will be called a closed garden so that, if I were to do one of my songs, my lyrics with the Beatles or anybody else now on Udio, I will only be able to play the songs on Udio itself. Now, who on earth would pay a monthly subscription site, monthly fee for a site like that and not be able to share their music with their friends outside of Udio? I mean, that's just crazy. Why would you ever do that? And as bad as that is, it was even worse how they announced it. First, they announced that, they didn't get, as I said, I don't go on Udio every day. But, I am a paid subscriber to the service. So you would think, so they announced that they made this deal and that they were going to withdraw your rights, commercial rights to your songs you did with them, and they weren't going to let you download them anymore. Now, of course, that led to a great deal of outrage because we're paying, and part of what we were paying for was the right to download our music and the rights to use our music commercially. So there was immediate talk of a class action lawsuit, and Udio, in a sense, backed down. They said, okay, songs made before this date, we're going to allow you 2 days to download. You can still have the commercial rights to them. You can still put them on YouTube, Spotify, anywhere. But, you have 2 days to download them. And, that was all they were offering. And the thing is, you would think they would email all of their pro subscribers and tell them you have 2 days to download your music. But they didn't. They didn't email me to say that this happened, and they didn't email me and give me that 2-day warning. Now, on one hand, I was very fortunate because whenever I finished a song, I downloaded it immediately because I'm very old school. I don't care how it sounds on the computer. I don't care how a song sounds on my stereo system or on my TV. I download the songs immediately because I want to listen to it in my car. Because that's where I always used to listen to music the most. And it's always, that's where I used to listen on the radio. So I like to hear how it sounds in a car. So I would immediately download my songs. So you would think, well, you weren't screwed. Yeah, I was, because one thing they started to allow you to do after I became a subscriber was download the stems. And for a couple songs where I wanted to make changes, I was downloading the stems. Also, what I was going to do, in some cases, I do some songs with my wife, I do songs with female voices, and I was going to do an album of my songs, and some of which were co-written by my wife, and I was going to use the Udio tracks, but use my wife's voice. So, had I been giving any sort of warning that I only had 2 days to do this, I would have downloaded the stems of all of my songs. So this is what I was cheated out of. was the ability to create my new versions. Of course, there are other programs that will allow me to do those songs, to, pull the vocals off. But, the fact that they didn't give paid subscribers warning that they were going to do this, and, it just seems unconscionable. Now, here's my prediction. I've always heard, at reading trade stuff, that the big music labels were working on their own AI, programs to create AI music, and that they were going to use their programs were going to be better than the commercially available ones, and they were going to be able to train their own artists on it. So my guess was going to be they're going to crush, Udio and Suno and all the other smaller ones. And then eventually one day we're going to be hearing new albums by Frank Sinatra and the Beatles, that they are going to use themselves. And Universal said this was one of the aspects of it, is because they want their artists to be able to, use artificial intelligence, these AI programs to help enhance their music. So here is my prediction. This deal is so stupid. Who is going to pay a monthly fee to have create music that they can't share with people, except other people on the platform? So Udio knew when they did this, they were going to lose all of their customers. Here's my guess. And also, they were the only ones that took the deal. Suno didn't take the deal, and this is not a deal between Udio and the other companies. Here's my prediction. Udio is going to disappear within a year. My guess is that these music companies have already been working on this, but have been looking at Udio and thinking, why are we spending all this money developing our own program when we can just use Udio? And my guess is that they're going to take Udio in-house, within a year, or they're going to alter, they're going to basically take the software, they're going to buy up Udio, what few remaining users, they'll be kicked off, and suddenly Udio will be the basis of this industry, AI, in the music industry. That's my prediction. Otherwise, this is just a crazy, the people who run Udio aren't that stupid. They didn't think they were going to be able to continue as a money-making enterprise with this closed garden philosophy of theirs. It's just stupid. So, I loved working with Udio. I chose Udio over Suno because at the time they said that, I looked at a lot of, third-party reviews. I looked at a lot of YouTube videos, and people were saying at the time when I got on it that Udio had better sound quality and better separation of the instruments and all than Suno, that the quality was simply better. Now, Udio had its own drawbacks in structuring the songs. You had to think of them in bits of 32 seconds and all, but I think after time I became pretty good at Udio. I've released a number of albums of my songs that I had written, most of which I've written and have my own melodies of and all, but throwing them through Udio, I liked them better, and I put out a number of albums in the last couple years, and if it looks like I'm doing a lot of albums quickly, it's because I've written quite a few songs. So I had quite a backlog of information. I'm not here asking ChatGPT to write me a song about this and then taking those lyrics and putting them in Udio. No, these are all very real, very personal songs. As I often say, my songs are my diary. My songs are I write a song in reaction to something that happened to me that day or that week, So these songs are all very personal to me, and I viewed them as real creative outputs. There are a lot of people who are very snobbish about AI music, and I understand them 100% because when I first picked up a guitar in like 1982 or 82 or 83, I don't know why I'm forgetting the dates now. But when I first picked up the guitar, I was very much a purist. That was when New Wave was coming around, and I just looked at New Wave music with utter disdain. Drum machines? huh, synthesizers. I was in a band. We were a basement band called the Atomic Enema. We had a drummer, we had a bass player, we had a guitar player, me, and we had a singer. And to me, that's what real music was. And I looked at new wave music with utter disdain. And of course, now here I am all these years later. Not only am I using artificial music, I'm actually turning some of my songs into new wave songs as well, to have the feel of that period, because that was the period when some of those songs were written. And so it seems actually most natural for them to be there. So I was very happy with Udio, but now I just look at them with complete disgust. This was a total sellout. It's unbelievable. And if I am proven wrong, and they are not, this is just not the beginning of a purchase of Udio by Universal, I will just shake my head and think, why did these people just destroy their company? Because I tell you what, I think in the end, these artificial intelligence companies are going to end up winning the battle over training. But I'll discuss that issue in another video. So I just wanted to get my thoughts out about Udio. What treachery, what betrayal. And I hope they do fold. I mean, this is unbelievable. I mean, they've essentially. What about, all those people who aren't as lucky as I did, who were just making their songs there, and like me, they did not get the notice that they had 2 days to download anything they wanted to keep. What about that? I bet there's tens of thousands of people that didn't get that notification, and those people are just utterly screwed. So maybe it shouldn't be surprising, because I've worked in the film business for quite a while, and I had a screenwriting partner, and every time we felt we were screwed by someone in the movie business, we would just turn to each other and say, well, at least we're not in the music business. Because in the music, if you think you're getting screwed in the movie business, it's like nothing like the music business, where you can just totally expect to be screwed over all the time. And here we are with Udio, screwing everybody over who are happily using their product and paying for their product. And these songs that people created, they created under a contract. It isn't like they were gifts from Udio. These people paid to create this music on their site. And I want my stems, frankly. I still want my stems. Oh, and I did cancel my subscription, and you had to click through a lot of buttons because they didn't want you to go. And at one point they're like, if you unsubscribe, you will lose all your credits. And I had like 4,000 credits, because when I first started, I was writing so many songs that I had a huge backlog, but I had built up a lot of credits. But I reached a point where it takes me a lot of credits to be satisfied with a song. So I was halfway through a new album when this happened. But, fortunately I got at least all of the songs. But, they screwed me out of my streams. I want those streams. I can make those streams on other programs. But why should I have to? I paid for the right to do this. Those songs belong to me. According to the contract I signed, the user agreement, I should have the right to download what I created, on their site, you paying them to do it. It isn't like they gave me a gift and can take it back. I purchased those songs through my user fee. So, boy, it sounds like I'm suddenly getting angry again. I thought I was wrapping it up. So I tell you what, I think you get the point. I am going to wrap it up now and say, if you enjoyed this video, please like and please subscribe to my channel. And please take a look at my Udio songs. It's easy to find them. If it's a song I'm singing, it will have a thumbnail looks like something like this. If it's a song that I do songs with my wife, if it's my wife and I, the thumbnail will look something like this. And all other musical thumbnails, some that look like this, or this, or this, those are the songs I created with Udio. So take a look at them. I'm quite proud of them. I wish things had ended better, but Udio betrayed us. Et tu, Udio.